Geopolitical terms. Buckle up. All right, first we got to talk about where did the first geopolitics start. And the first ones we know about occurred in the Fertile Crescent. I know you're thinking, wait, that's the hearth of religion, that's the hearth of language, that's the hearth of agriculture. You're right, it's also the hearth of political geography. And it started with the political entity known as a city-state. It's exactly what you think it is. It's when a city becomes powerful and controls the area around it, creating like a mini country. And these are called city-states. We see them in Mesopotamia, you see them in Greece, parts of Rome throughout history. They're kind of outdated today, but it's a city with control and influence over the surrounding area. Later, it will turn into empires, and eventually today, as we know, a state in our context. So that's the beginning. Let's keep moving with some more terms. Next, you have the phrase sovereignty. If we look at this word, we see the root word reign, which means power. And power and reign means that these states can enforce laws, they can recognize treaties, they have domestic protection and protection abroad. So they can defend their country, and they also can enforce laws. And that's called sovereignty. It's a word you'll see a lot. It just means the ability to enforce these laws. All right, now let's talk about what is a nation, because a lot of people use the word country, nation, and state all in the same, and they're different terms. A nation is a group of people who have some sort of common ancestral characteristic, cultural characteristic, and maybe this group of people have decided to, sing a certain way or have a certain religious belief or practice certain customs, and that is a nation. And a nation can be, a group of people living inside of a country. Now, sometimes you'll have a nation-state. A nation-state is when that group of people creates their own homogeneous, that's the word right now, it means everyone's identical country or state. There are few and far of these in the world, mostly because you have to be isolated. The world's so interconnected today that that doesn't happen. But Iceland and Japan are really good examples of nation states. Like Iceland, I think, has 13 surnames in the entire country. So you got that. Japan, very much Japanese. You go to Japan, almost everyone is Japanese, and that's changing. And so nation states have a shared history, language, territory, religion, and culture, and that will create this nation state. Just so we're all clear, a state is what you would call a country, I would imagine. It's a political unit. What makes it confusing is in the United States, we are all one state, but we call our subdivision, what others would call a province or a territory, we call those states. So I know it's confusing. The United States of America is one state, okay? So don't use state and nation interchangeably. State is another word for country. Nation is a group of people with a shared cultural past. All right. What is a multinational state? Well, we look at the prefix multi, that means many. So that means many nations. Nation is another word for a group of people with cultural traits. So this means a country with many different groups of people. Wow, that was a very technical term here. And if you look at Russia, you can see Russia has 185 different ethnic groups, and America also has a lot of different ethnic groups. If we look at this, Russia is a perfect example of a multinational state. Again, that means many different groups of people living within one country, multinational state. And Russia, what happened is, when it became the Soviet Union with the Communist Revolution in the early 1900s, it started taking over these places in Eastern Europe after World War II. And the country of Yugoslavia is a great example of a multinational state. We can see in 1989, Yugoslavia is on the Balkan Peninsula here. And it was comprised of all of these countries like Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia, Montenegro. And all of a sudden, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it begins to break down, and this is called balkanization. And the Balkan Peninsula is known for balkanization because it will break down and it turns into these nations. Like this is Croatia, and the Croats live there. And, we have Serbia, where these Serbs live. And this division is called balkanization. It's named after this peninsula because this peninsula is constantly trying to find self-identification of different nations and groups living within it. Like modern day right now, Kosovo. Now we got to talk about other examples. So the Kurds are a group of people that are ethnically identifiable that live in the Middle East. They live in this area, mostly in Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and a little bit of Syria, but mostly in Turkey. And the Kurds are a group of people. They have their own language. They have their own shared history. And they are considered a multi-state nation. They live in many different countries, and they're one group of people. They're also considered a stateless nation because they are a group of people that desperately want their own country, but they do not have that yet. So they are a multi-state nation. So remember, that means a group of people living across many different countries. Another example would be North and South Korea. So you have North Korea and South Korea, two different political entities, but they have one group of people, the Koreans, that are, genetically the same, and they have this biological ancestors that are the same. However, politically, they're separated. So that's a multi-state nation. Palestine would also be an example of another stateless nation. It's a group of people, a nation of people living in Israel who want to be recognized with their own political entity as a state. You also have different types. Like, I consider these the kittens and puppies of the world, right? Everyone likes a little puppy and a little kitty. It's so cute. But we have these microstates in Europe. You can see there's Liechtenstein, San Marino. Shout out to the Vatican inside of Rome. This is the smallest country in the world. It's a religious theocracy, but these microstates are very small. And most of these are very powerful and rich, and they have some control and influence. The last two we're going to look at are autonomous and semi-autonomous regions. So autonomy means you have power and control. So an autonomous region is an area that has control of itself. However, maybe it's influenced by another larger power. And a good example of an autonomous region would be Taiwan and China. And Taiwan is an island just off the coast of China. So they obviously have that connection through the lack of distance. And China and Taiwan's relationship is strained because Taiwan does have control over its internal affairs, but China claims it. They call it Chinese Taipei. Taiwan calls itself the Republic of China, or the ROC. And they're known for having different political philosophies. China has a lot more controlled communist background, where Taiwan's a lot more free market. And this goes all the way back to the colonial days, with Taiwan being easily accessible by ship and having that powerful trade. Now, a semi-autonomous, so this means it's less power, less control, and some semi-autonomous regions, they have control over themselves. However, there is an outside force that is playing on it. We'll see China has both autonomous and semi-autonomous regions. But first, let's look at Native American Indian reservations in America, highlighted in purple. These are semi-autonomous regions because these tribes were ceded this land in order to make their own laws, their own customs, and to create their own way of life. However, they are limited in the scope in which they can operate politically. Like, they cannot create an army, they couldn't sign treaties with other countries. However, they are allowed to, maintain any custom. That's why there's a lot of casinos in these places, because it's, not as regulated. Hong Kong in southeast China is another place that is semi-autonomous. Because it's connected, right? You can see Taiwan here, but because Hong Kong is connected, and it goes back to the imperial past with the British, China sees it as it's part of it. However, people in Hong Kong are more capitalist in nature. You have like one of the largest amounts of billionaires, the most skyscrapers in the world, and you see this idea of one country, two systems, and it depends on who you ask whether Hong Kong is it's a special administrative place, but is it independent, or is it controlled by China? Northern Ireland and the UK would be another one, because Northern Ireland is its own country. However, like during the Olympics, they play with the UK and are dominated by England. So those would be semi-autonomous regions. All right, that is it for today.